years until your comeback.
Plan how and then each of them has one, but I will make copies for the public.
Are we ready?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Good point.
Let's call the meeting to order. Monday, the 6th of June, 2005. This evening, the invocation will be provided by the Reverend William Chambers Sr. from the Church of the Nazarene, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to Police Explorers and Councilwoman Garner. Would you all please stand?
Please pray with me. Almighty Sovereign God, we thank you for the privilege of living in Homestead in the beautiful South Florida with the lovely Everglades and the beauties of nature surrounding us as reminders of you and your goodness. May we serve you as faithful servants, the God that rules over all, who has all power and all wisdom. May we share in that wisdom. We pray that your blessing would be upon our council tonight and always, and the mayor and all in the city as they lead us forward and progress. May it be that there is unity with one another, unity with those that we represent, and unity with other governments, especially as we unite in recognizing those that are unrepresented and downtrodden and those that need the help and strength that government can provide. Then we pray that we might, above all, be righteous and moral in what we do. May we care genuinely for one another. Though we come from different perspectives and have different ideals, may it be that we work together in unity for the betterment that you would have for us and thereby fulfill your calling for us. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Warren.
Present.
Vice Mayor Bell. Here. Councilwoman Garner. Here. Councilman Hodge.
Here.
Councilman Losner.
Here.
Councilman Porter.
Here.
Councilwoman Waldman. Here.
Additions, deletions, or deferrals, Mr. Manager? None. Special presentation of proclamation, National Military Appreciation Month.
How you doing?
Fine. Good. We just recently paused and thanked our military during Memorial Day for the sacrifices of our armed services, not only in this country but all over the world. They're all over the world providing security and freedom for all of us. This month, proclaimed as the National Military Appreciation Month, and I'm pleased to have Colonel Falcon here and Major Davis present to receive this proclamation. But just let me say, Colonel, we are pleased that you're here, but pleased with the fine work that you and the whole team here at the base is doing for our country, and we're honored as the City of Homestead to have your presence and to call that base Homestead Air Reserve Base. Pleasure. Let me read the proclamation on behalf of the Mayor and Council. Whereas the vigilance of the members of the armed forces have been instrumental to the preservation of the freedom, security, and prosperity enjoyed by the people of the United States. And whereas all levels of government have a responsibility to raise awareness of and respect for this aspect of the heritage of the United States, and to encourage the people of the United States to dedicate themselves to the values and principles for which Americans have served and sacrificed throughout the history of the nation. And whereas the support of the families of the service members enhances the effectiveness and capabilities of the armed forces, and whereas the observance of events recognizing the contributions of the armed forces is a tangible and highly effective way of sustaining morale and improving quality of life for service members and their families, and whereas on April 30th, 1999, the Senate passed Senate Resolution 33 in the 106th Congress entitled Designating May as National Military Appreciation Month, calling on the people of the United States in a symbolic act of unity to observe the National Military Appreciation Month in May to honor the current and former members of the armed forces, including those who have died in the pursuit of freedom and peace. Therefore, we, the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of May National Military Appreciation Month in Homestead and call upon the residents of Homestead to join us in expressing our heartfelt appreciation to the members of the United States military, especially those right here at Homestead Air Reserve Base, for the great service and contribution they have made toward providing and preserving the freedoms which we Americans so dearly cherish. Colonel, congratulations. Glad to have you here.
Great.
Thank you.
Mayor Warren, City Council, I am humbled and very appreciative to be standing up here and representing the military members of Southern Florida, in particular those of Homestead Air Reserve Base, of the 482nd Fighter Wing that's there and all the tenants that are there. We are deeply honored to have this proclamation for us because of all the support. This is not only that we're providing support for you in this country, but we have seen that 100-fold in reverse to us and the military members that are in this local area, from your city council here and for the town of Homestead and all the local communities that support the military members. So we are proud to call ourselves members of Homestead, the town of Homestead. Well, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Colonel. Major Coat. Just hold the proclamation.
Put this down.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 5B is the recognition of Classroom Learning Assistance Program, the CLAP, volunteers. Vice Mayor Bell.
Good evening. It's my pleasure tonight to recognize three outstanding people who have joined with the City of Homestead's Education Committee in volunteering and helping out in the local schools. This is a program that I actually conceived of during the campaign and worked very, very hard along with Parks and Recreation, along with John Rebar, on trying to establish a program utilizing seniors working through the Senior Citizen Center to help out in the local area schools. And it's been tough getting the program going, but we've had 3 faithful members who have helped. So, and I'm just getting rave reviews, and I'm very, very pleased to recognize them tonight for a full year of helping out at a local school. And I thank you so much, and I know that Avocado appreciates you so much. They're so appreciative, and we hope to get a lot more volunteers next year, but these 3 have been so faithful. I'd like to recognize them. Please come up and stand up here next to me. Elba Holmes, Lillian Marlowe, and Thelma Tucker. Thank you so much.
My last name is pronounced Marlatt.
Marlatt. Thank you. Lillian. Recognition. Would you like to say a word? Would you be happy? No? Oh, okay. Please do.
I really enjoy going over to the school and working with the kids. It works both ways. I get pleasure from them, and I hope they learn something from me.
Well, I'm Thelma Tucker, and I'm a retired registered nurse. I worked for the public health system for 21 years, and I'm retired now, and I like to do some community work. And one of the things was mentoring children. I have a lot of pleasure out of it, and I enjoy working with children, and I like to make a difference. Thank you.
Spanish or in English? In English if you can.
I'm Elba Holmes. I enjoy working with the children, and I have been doing it for many years, and I'll keep on doing as far as I can. Thank you.
We're going to defer the MAD. Item 5C, do we have the MAD representatives here yet? All right, we'll move on. 5D is Main Street Organization.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Just a brief update on Main Street Organisation and what's happening down in the old part of town, if you want to call it that. We just had a very successful folk festival, and I want to thank the city departments that enabled me to put on this festival. It was a great success. The 3 nights were played to full houses. Unfortunately, the weatherman didn't cooperate on the Saturday, so we had a smaller attendance, but it was culturally a wonderful event, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. I have a little bad news in that we've had to postpone the Idol contest, the Homestead Idol. I guess it was due to the end of the school year. Our young people were too busy deciding what they're going to do for the holidays or whatever, but we only ended up with 2 people to audition. So we have postponed it till later in the school year. Hopefully they will come forward and audition and be able to take part in this event. The 2 young people who did perform were excellent performers, and we have asked them to perform at one of our events that's coming up, so they're going to get a chance to perform for coming to the auditions. The next big event is something that we'd like everyone to get involved in. We're going to be promoting a tribute to the Grand Old Opry at the Main Street Cafe. They're going to be bringing a wonderful slide guitar player and some pickers and singers, and we're going to do a tribute to the Grand Ole Opry. We're hoping that this is going to be one of the first of these kinds of events that will add another genre to what's going on downtown. So it is something, and Main Street is involved in the fact that we're running a look-alike contest. So if there are any Dolly Partons or any other aspiring people who think they look like some of the past people, do show up in costume, and there'll be some great prizes. One of the prizes coming from Stick and Stein, who I'm pleased to say is one of our new businesses down on Main Street, so which we're also very happy to have down there. And I can guarantee you that Minnie Pearl is going to be there. So I'll see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the update. Go back to item 5C, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving presentation. Vice Mayor Bill.
Thank you. I would like Janet Monteschein, the Executive Director, and Diane Holmes, President, to go up to the lectern. I want to introduce them, and let me explain to you why I've invited Mad here. We've never had Mad here in the chambers before, and I think we really need to make this a yearly event. It was about a year and a half or so ago, maybe just a little bit more, and my daughter was on her way home from skating, and she was hit by a drunk driver, and her car was totaled, completely totaled, and she was fine, thank God. And when the man basically fell out of his truck, he was so drunk he could hardly walk. And when we appeared in court, he did not, and subsequently we've never found him. Then approximately about a year ago, my husband and I were coming home from an Eagle Scout ceremony, and starting at 152nd Street, we followed a man who was driving drunk all the way from 152nd to the Homestead exit. He was so drunk that by the time I had the Homestead police on the phone. Once we got into Homestead, we got him within 2 or 3 minutes, and I was constantly calling the state troopers, and to no avail. And once we got him, he was just so mad that he made it all the way from 152nd. He was just a couple blocks from home when we got him in Homestead, and he was also very, very legally drunk, and he hit 2 people. He hit 2 cars. So I just thought it was so important that I'm just one person that's affected twice within a year. And my husband and I went to court twice, and because of us going to court and showing up, he actually had to plead guilty, and they tried to postpone it again and again, and he didn't get away with it. So he actually has a major suspension of his license, and if he does it again, he'll be in much more severe trouble than he is now. So I thought it would be very, very important to bring the Mothers Against Driving to our chambers, and let's hear from them. Thank you.
Thank you, and good for you for going to court and for going forward with this. I want to pass out our newsletters because I'd like you to refer to them as I speak. Thank you, and we are very honored to be here today. I'm Janet Monteschein, the Executive Director of MAD. I've always prefaced my remarks by saying that I'm not a victim. I'm one of the lucky ones. However, I've worked with MAD and for MAD for almost 14 years, and I've seen firsthand the pain and the deep and unyielding pain of a family member when their loved one has been killed by a drunk driver. Diane Holmes is here with me today. She is the president, and she's also the founder of our Miami-Dade County chapter, and she wasn't so lucky. So I'd like to introduce you all to Diane Holmes, our president or founder, and let her tell you her story.
Thank you, Janet. I'd just like to give you a little bit of a background of when my son was killed 22 years ago. My parents used to live in the Homestead area until they died, so I'm pretty familiar, and I live down south too. So it was on a cold February night, February the 3rd, 1983. Sean decided he was going to walk up to a local technical high school not far from our house. And he said, "Hey, Mom, it's not far. You don't have to drive me." And little did I know, that night would be the last night that I would ever see him, hear his voice,
or his sisters would ever see him again. Because the last words he said to me as he walked out the door, "Bye, Mom, I'm going now." And as I waited for the call, "Hey, Mom, come pick me up," it never came. The next day, my husband reported him missing to Miami-Dade Police Department. He was on a disability, so he was able to do that. I went to work because I wasn't able to concentrate, but because of a computer glitch, it never got into the system, and no one was ever looking for him. This was on a Thursday night. On a Saturday morning, my husband and I drove around everywhere where we thought he might have gone, left our name and our phone number, and no one had ever seen him. And those of you that have children, you know when something's happened to one of your children. And I knew this is not like Sean. He would have called. And as we're driving back to the house, I pull into the road to go back to our house, and I can see the black and whites have blacked off the street. The lights are flashing, and my husband turned and looked at me and said, "Why don't you pull over? I'll walk down and let them know we have an 18-year-old son missing." It's been 22 years. I will always see the yellow plastic covering, which I later found was my son's body, until the day I die. And I will always remember my husband walking back to the car, and I can't even begin to tell you the look of anguish on his face, and the only two words he said to me is, "It's Sean." At that point, the detective already knew it was a hit and run. "Go back home, we'll let you know if we catch anyone." To this day also, I don't know how I drove home. The only thing I can think is the good Lord was looking out for us, and I only lived a short distance from the crash site, because the next thing I remember is pulling in my driveway, not having the faintest idea how I got there, and thinking I had to call my mother down here in Homestead, and she had to contact my oldest daughter, and I had to call another daughter that had just moved to New York in the process of moving to Germany, because my son-in-law is in the Air Force 3 times over the Middle East, and she was just getting ready to move to Germany, and they were going to be married. I don't know how I made those calls. All I can think of, shock does a lot for you and gets you through what you don't think you would have to get through. I wasn't so lucky. The girl was finally arrested that night. As the priest was there, we were making funeral arrangements, which is something no parent should ever have to do. We got a call from the detective. We have arrested her, a 20-year-old that lived down in the next block from us. She drove along that night with one headlight out from a previous crash 2 months before. No insurance, no valid driver's license, and admitted drinking all afternoon at Ben Whistler's restaurant up at Cutler Ridge Mall, where she had been employed for 1 week. And what she told the officer when they were finally able to arrest her is, "I hit a tree, I hit a dog. It's okay, no big deal. We're 2 women, and we did turn around and we did look." No, they did not. She spent 1 night in jail. And that's the reason that there is a Miami-Dade County chapter of MAD, because I feel like Sean just died for no reason. And I had to put my anger and my frustration into starting MAD. Thank you.
Thank you. That was 22 years ago. And it still hurts, and as I said, it's an unyielding, unending pain. But we're here because we're mad, and I'll share with you some statistics that might make you mad. Countywide, DUI enforcement is down 41% since 1996, according to the clerk's office. And Miami-Dade County has the highest number of deaths from drunk driving than any other county within Florida. And nationwide, while the rest of the country boasts a reduction of 3%, Florida's numbers have increased almost 9%. drunk driving is a 100% preventable crime. It doesn't have to happen. But when our children, fathers, mothers, aunts, and uncles are being killed because of an irresponsible, unlawful act, it's not just horrendous, it's infuriating. It's maddening. Each of you has received our newsletter. If you would kindly turn to the inside left page, you will see that the decrease of driving under the influence or DUI enforcement is an across-the-board problem. And we're addressing each and every police agency. In fact, we met with Chief Roll, Captain Kennedy, and Officer Sermon several weeks ago, and they were extremely gracious and eager to work with MAD. They also gave us a greater understanding of Homestead's challenges, its growth, and its diversity, as well as your long and arduous and continuing recovery after Hurricane Andrew. One of the primary goals of Mothers Against Drunk Driving is to stop drunk driving, so we're asking that you help us increase DUI enforcement and training. We're asking that you assist police departments with the appropriate fiscal resources to accomplish this task. Now let me tell you what MAD does. We produce public awareness banners and materials. We partner with the Miami-Dade Police Department in their youth alcohol education program, Don't Let Alcohol Be Your Last Taste of Life. This is an award-winning program, and it's in 38 schools throughout Miami-Dade County. We lobby to help pass strong laws that benefit our communities and the victims, and we can be found in the courts watching and supporting DUI victims, and that's what Diane does best. But all of what we do is mere lip service without enforcement. Law enforcement is our hope and our first and last defense against DUI crime. And without their proactive efforts and strong message that drinking and driving crime will not be tolerated and that there will be serious consequences if a person decides to drink and drive, then we'll continue this downward spiral. So we're asking for your renewed commitment to DUI enforcement, including the use of sobriety checkpoints and the Drug Recognition Expert Program. And while we're aware of the need of more officers and that there are always financial and money constraints, there are ways that we're trying to get creative. We produced posters that speak to the cost of drinking and driving. This is what it looks like, and I'll pass that on to you. And basically, we've taken these posters, and these posters go into restrooms of various clubs. They go into the restrooms of hotels, and they can be translated into Spanish. We will provide you with these posters if you would like. We'll also include your police agency logo along with MAD's. Also, we would like you to advertise DUI enforcement or DUI squad on your police vehicles. We feel that this will send a strong message, and this will act as a deterrent to DUI crime. Now we know that it's not just one thing that will stop DUI crime. It's a multifaceted problem. And without your help, the support of the community, we will continue to have people die needlessly, and we don't want that to happen. You were almost a two-time victim of a DUI crash. And Diane, although she didn't tell you this, her daughter's brother-in-law was killed in almost the exact same way that her son was killed. And this was several years ago. So she's been hit twice, just as you were. And it doesn't have to happen. If we get together, if we talk to parents, if we advertise, if we get a strong police department, send a strong message, then we can just help eradicate drunk driving crime. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. It is our privilege, and we so much appreciate it. And who shall I give this to for you to look at and possibly discuss?
Sure, leave some for us.
I'll leave it for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Yes, I just would like to add, well, actually share with Matt and Marlene. I asked Marlene last Christmas holidays for us to get a ready vehicle and put the banner up of Drive Safely. And it's actually, I mean, that was like a last minute thing we just kind of put together. But actually Matt and a commissioner in Mobile, Alabama is where I kind of got the idea from. It's something that they work together on doing, and it's a full-fledged program where they take vehicles and clean them up or whatever, but they're still wrecked and banged up pretty bad. Yeah. And they put the sign out there with Matt and from the police department telling them to drive safely, and they run a program where they do a fundraiser, and like on holiday nights, graduation nights for the kids, if, you know, when people are out drinking, that, you know, they advertise it and have a number up that they can call to get someone to come and drive them home, whether it's a taxi, send a taxi or whatever. Great. So that's something that I would like to try and implement here if we can. That's where I got that idea from, and, you know, now that they're here, then maybe we could put that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Well, Vice Mayor, I think it's a program with you and Councilman Hodge would probably want to initiate some additional activities in the city of Homestead with the police department to further emphasize the need for prevention. It's very important. Thank you for bringing that forward.
My pleasure.
Item 5E is certificate of membership to Mayor's Youth Council. Councilwoman Garner.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to announce our newest member of the Mayor's Youth Council, Ms. Harolyn Sawyer. Harolyn, you want to come up? Harolyn will be a senior at Coral Reefs High School in the fall. She is involved in drama, band, her school color guard, her school newspaper, her art club, her church youth group, and much more. We're very pleased to have her.
Thank you, Amanda. The consent agenda, there's motion for approval. So moved. Moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hart. Yes.
We would like to, staff would request pulling 6D Delta II off to add a statement there and then vote on that one. That deals with the Humpty Dumpty Park design work.
Okay.
If I may, I'd like to read the statement for the record.
Go ahead.
The city's obligation to pay the consultant for each phase of this work shall be subject to the condition precedent that the city manager certifies that all necessary funds for the applicable phase of the work has been received by the city from the Michael Latner Group as referenced in the council resolution which approved this proposal.
Very good.
Is that okay with the motioners?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearings, ordinance, land use items. Mr. Weiss.
Please be advised that the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to comment on any of these items, please indicate the item number you would like to address when the announcement regarding the quasi-judicial item is made. An opportunity for persons to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and staff have made their presentation on each item. Swearing in, all testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish to either be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the council to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. The full agenda packet on each item is hereby entered into the record. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak for the organization. Further details of the quasi-judicial procedures may be obtained from the clerk. In accordance with Code Section 2591, any lobbyist must register before addressing the council on any of the quasi-judicial items. At this time, council members must disclose any ex parte communications concerning any items on the agenda. At this time, the clerk will swear in any persons who wish to identify on any quasi-judicial item.
Please stand and raise your right hand. I state your name. Hereby swear or affirm that the information that I present shall be the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, our first item is a final order of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting a certificate of use to allow the operation of a banquet hall with on-premises consumption of all alcoholic beverages located at 1871 Northeast 8th Street within the Galileo Plaza, which is on the northeast corner of Southwest 312th Street, Campbell Drive, and Southwest 162nd Avenue, Farm Life School Road, as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
Is the motion for final order?
Move approval with the question.
Moved by Mr. Excuse me. Moved by Mr. Porter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Garner. Mr. Porter?
In the minutes, it said they have the right to, they don't sell it in this banquet hall. It said it's on premises consumption, but they don't sell it there. Is that correct?
That's staff's understanding of what the application is for, yes.
Okay, so if the person that rents the hall wants to bring their own alcohol in, that's how they have to have a license appropriately to do that, correct?
Yes, I think staff has analyzed it and may be able to address the details further.
To my knowledge, yes, that catering facilities and such that would be bringing in alcoholic beverages would need to be licensed in order to operate in the facility, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any other comments from council?
Question, Mayor.
Mr. Laws?
Our package referred to limitation of hours of operation, and just for the record, could we have what those hours would be?
There's a requirement in the code, and so at a minimum they would need to meet those requirements of 39E. I'm not aware of them agreeing to a lesser period of time.
Any other comments from council? Well, this is a public hearing and open up for audience participation. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? Give us your name and address for the record.
Catherine Castellanos, 905 Northeast 18th Avenue, Homestead, Florida. We came in and we commented on it last time as far as the operation happening, and because we live directly next door to them pretty much, and we have to wake up really early in the morning to go to work. We work down at Miami-Dade Transit, and pretty much what we said at that point was that you guys were deciding about the alcohol. It wasn't any decision as far as the operation of the location. So at this point, you tell me, are we deciding again only the alcohol, or are we deciding about the location? Because our whole thing was that you're changing the neighborhood drastically, and we've barely gotten informed on some of the things. I came now from the other neighbor. She never even got the letter about them even selling alcohol or anything like that, or even that particular location that it was going to become a little mall, outlet center, whatever you want to call it, stores. So our big concern is the noise. That's primarily the noise and the people that are going to be coming in, regardless of the fact that it's going to be people that are throwing parties, that are family residents and so forth and so on, because as we all know, family residents are the ones who become drunk drivers. So just the way you were affected, same thing happened to me on Lucy. Guy never showed up, jumped bail, and so forth. So that was the other concern, because not only are you then talking about somebody coming out of there drunk, knocking down a fence at, 2 o'clock in the morning, who knows? All these little ramifications that happen afterwards is what we were concerned about, so that's my point on that. We'd like it not to be.
Thank you. I just want to ask a question, because in our planning and zoning minutes of May 4th, it says that Mr. LaPrade reminded everyone that the applicant was pleading today for the alcohol service and not the actual operation of the banquet hall, stating that if the noise coming from that building was too loud, the residents should call the police or ask for police personnel preference. So I'd like some clarification on that.
If I may, Ms. Wellman, if I remember right, and I'm not sure if the applicant is here, if the applicant is here, he or she can probably add to my commentary. But the best of my remembrance is, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, luckily restrained. The Galleria Plaza itself was approved by P&Z and approved by this council much earlier. What you're doing now is looking at one individual use and allowing them, again, the banquet facility itself and the alcohol related to it. The member who was here indicated of the applicant that they are going to be sound insulating their portion of the building so that most of the sound would stay within the building. When we talked at P&Z, the lady who complained just now mentioned the same comment there, and the gentleman who was representing the applicant indicated what he was going to do as far as sound. Obviously, when you open the door, there's going to be a sound, but the door should close again, and there should not be all that much sound. The other thing I would like to mention is that, granted, well, the same lady came and argued against it. I think they were her and her husband were the only two people that came in, and basically based on what code allows, and if you flip to the back on page 4 of 5 of the P&Z report, it indicates the 6 things that we're told to look at in order to grant...
Excuse me, Mr. Chandra, are you referring to the minutes that you want us to refer to?
No, I'm referring to the P&Z. In the council packet, there's a P&Z report, staff report of May 24th. And the thing I want to point out is the very last, actually page 4 out of 5. In order to look at the criteria for the special use, certificate of use criteria, we have 6 things we need to look at. And if you read it or have a chance to read it, they basically met all 6.
Well, I guess my question to you is that based on the current zoning that's there and what's come before council before,
yes, ma'am,
this shopping center is allowable.
Yes, ma'am. The shopping center has already been improved. It's under construction, ma'am.
Done.
Yes, ma'am.
And the banquet facility, that's what we're trying to determine. The banquet facility, according to this, that's already been allowed as well, correct?
Yes, ma'am. The banquet facility was in the original plaza itself.
So that was already in there.
Yes, I know. And what I'd like to interject is that someone here on your panel or down the line has continuously dropped the ball and doesn't let us know what's going on. So it's like in fragments that we end up finding out that we have to see what's going on so we can come and complain. So that's up to you. You're not informing us. The people who end up choosing you to be up here to represent us. I realize that at this point it's a losing battle because this whole situation has gone into motion. But so you don't let it happen again, I'd like to be informed. I'm one of your little constituents that cares enough and would like you to inform me and send me a letter every time so I can be here. So when you ratify my whole living area that I've moved down here because it was so peaceful and quiet, I can come in and say something.
I understand.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Lawson?
I think if you look at the history of this property, that zoning that allowed this use, not the alcohol, but the banquet hall, has been in place for many, many years. And to the extent this has been before us, may have been for site plan approval for the positioning of buildings. With that zoning, this council never has and doesn't have the right to deny, based on that zoning.
Right, but when you're talking buildings...
We can deal with alcohol,
right,
but not the banquet hall.
But when you're talking buildings, it could have been office buildings that work from 9 to 5. I realize that at this point, it's in a business zone, but now you're expanding the whole criterion and it's something else, which I'm not aware of it. So I'm putting the ball in your court. You're the ones who make these choices and decisions and have to inform me, because I don't know about it until you tell me. When I find out about it is when the placards go up and I'm like, oh, this is what's coming here. Or because I've been over here building and zoning because I'm expanding my house, and then they tell me, oh, did you know that this is coming down your neighborhood? Oh, thanks. thanks for letting us know about that.
I guess the point I was trying to make, though...
Right, that it was done way previous to you guys.
We personally are in the same situation you are. When zoning's in place and there's no site plan or variances requested, and we ride by and see new construction happening, we have the luxury of calling staff and saying, hey, what's going on over there? But...
That doesn't sound good.
People have the right to go pull building permits if all their zoning's in place. And unfortunately, I mean, we all have, these personal and familiar with the instances where what we think the neighborhood's going to be is certainly evolving into something, sadly, evolving into something else.
But aren't you the ones that are in place to avoid that from happening, so we have, a better community? I thought that was...
Only if they're trying to do something that's not permitted under the zoning.
Under building and zoning.
It's been there.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Lasner. Let me add one other comment, and again, I really wish that the applicant was here because I'm going to state a couple of things that they had said simply so that you have the same criteria that was presented in front of P&Z. If I remember right, and I hope Susan, you or James can fill me in if I'm wrong, they were only going to be having the later versions on the weekend, if I remember right, Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They wouldn't be open in the evening during the middle of the week, if I believe so. You don't recall that? Okay. Is the applicant here? Okay, good. Then maybe he can say it instead of me making sure I'm not paraphrasing it improperly, but I wanted to make at least a comment towards that, then let them answer as well, because that was, again, the give and take that went at P&Z. I want you guys to realize what went back and forth, and I'll let the applicant, if that's the right time.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Thank you. My name is Richard Murray. I'm one of the owners that's going to be putting this establishment. To make it understandable for the persons that were complaining was the business is going to run during the day just for sales. Parties usually, the party events that are going to happen, usually going to be after work hours on Fridays, afternoon Saturdays, night Saturdays, and usually days and afternoon Sundays. Those are going to be the real hours of operation of the hall. I mean, the weekdays is going to be open between 12 and 8. That's just strictly sales. I mean, if there might be a luncheon, in a bank, anybody can, get it any day, but really our hours of operation really is going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. That's going to be our, that's our primary right now.
Any other question for the applicant? Let me add one more thing if I can, Mr. Mayor. In the notice of the public hearing itself, it mentioned that there was a courtesy notice was not required by law, but we did ship it out to 26 people around the area. I do not know for a fact whether this later husband ended up one of those 26 people, but 26 were... Okay. Well, then they were noticed.
And she's here now. So that was the other person who was kind of irritated about it.
Okay, but you're telling us that we didn't notify people, and now you're telling us you were notified. All I'm pointing out...
But I wasn't notified originally about anything else, and she wasn't notified. So it was like a lottery situation of who you decided to...
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if the comments are going to be made, they need to be made from the podium into the microphone so we can make a part of the record.
I was notified that one letter. That was it. I then informed the lady next door to me who is concerned, who's been living here for the past 50 years, and she's here now, and she called in and she gave her statement as to this situation. But you can't make it a lottery situation of, 26 letters. There's more people on that block and in the vicinity. That's all I'm saying. I realize that at this point it's a done deal and we're not deciding anything, but I want you to be made aware of it so you don't let it happen again. End of story.
Thank you.
And the big thing is that you're saying, oh, it's on the weekend. Guess what? I am the unlucky, misfortunate people who have to work on Saturday and Sunday. On Sunday, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's like, it's relevant. But,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I think Councilman Lazar stated it very well. The zoning is what the zoning is, but where we do have discretion is where it comes to the sale of alcohol. That's where we have the discretion. We can't overrule the zoning use, what the future land use map says, what the comprehensive plan says. The zoning is what it is. But where we do have our discretion is on the permit or the use of alcohol. And that's where this council can weigh in and say yay or nay. And that's where we do have the authority, not necessarily on the zoning. So I want everybody to understand that. Also, it is an irony that I asked Mad here tonight, because I asked Mad about a month ago, and we had this all set up long before I ever saw this agenda. This was not done on purpose. It's very ironic. I do think there's a big difference, and maybe I shouldn't make a distinction, but I do think there's a big difference in approving or disproving a new banquet facility to bring in alcohol to the presence, as opposed to an established restaurant eating facility, where you go and you have a meal. I think there's a big difference between that, and I did want to make that line of demarcation. There is a big difference. I know at restaurants there is cutoffs, responsible drinking, and it's a bit different than a banquet facility. And so I've been in many banquet facilities, and I've seen the results of that. So I do express concern with the alcohol in this particular form. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other comments from council? Any other comments from the audience? Any other comments from the audience? Well, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
No.
Mr. Losner?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
No.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next is a final order of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting a certificate of use to allow the sale of all alcoholic beverages with the service of food for on-premise consumption at 122 and 146 Northwest 7th Street, located on the south side of Northwest 7th Street between Northwest 1st Avenue and Northwest 2nd Avenue, as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Moved by Councilman Porter, second by Councilwoman Garner. Any initial questions from council? Any initial questions from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Do we have any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Hodge?
No.
Councilman Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
A resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting final plat approval for Floridian Isles South, located south of Southwest 304th Street, Northeast 15th Street, Kings Highway, north of 312th Street, Campbell Drive, west of Southwest 137th Avenue, Tallahassee Avenue, and east of the Florida Turnpike, is legally described in Exhibit A and providing, formerly known as Pod Inn, within the Waterstone Planned Unit Development Phase 2. 176 townhouse units on approximately 13.61 acres of land, and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Porter, second by Councilman Hodge.
Oh, sorry.
Comments from council? Any comments from council? If not, I'll open up the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next is second reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending Ordinance 79-08-47, which granted a special use permit to permit parking in R3 zoning for B1 use on the premises located at 231 and 235 Southwest 4th Court, as legally described in Exhibit A, to release the unity of title condition and providing an effective date.
I'll move it.
Moved by Vice Mayor, second by Councilman Hodge. Questions from council? Any questions from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? The second and final reading. Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Councilman Losner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
That concludes the quasi-judicial agenda, Mr. Mayor. The first reading of the first ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the City Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 30, Zoning, Article 1, Generally, Section 30-1, Definitions, to amend and create definitions related to plan development, amending Chapter 30, Zoning, Article 2, Administration, Division 2, Procedures for Zoning Amendments, Special Exception Permits, Planned Unit Development Submittals, and Variances, etc., to modify the Planned Unit Development or PUD application and review process, and to modify the Unified Site Plan review process, amending Article 4, Supplemental District Regulations, Division 3, Density, Section 30-457, Maximum Density Established, to modify the permissible density in a Planned Unit Development, repealing Article 6, Planned Unit Developments, attached here to as Exhibit A, establishing new Planned Unit Development PUD zoning category with revised development standards as Article 6 of the City Code of Ordinances, renumbering Article 6 Planned Unit Developments, Division 17, RT&D, Traditional Neighborhood Development District, to become Article 3 District Regulations, Division 22, RT&D, Traditional Neighborhood Development District, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Garner, second by Councilman Hodge. Comments from council?
Questions of staff and the attorneys, Mayor.
Mr. Losman?
So I recall several weeks ago, we had a committee of the whole workshop on this and made some extensive comments.
Yes, sir.
Could you go through and so to refresh us and so that the audience knows where those changes have been incorporated, what we discussed, and then I want to touch on the green sheet that was circulated, amending that as well.
Do you want to start with the green sheet or the specifics, Mr. Lasner? We can start either way.
Let's go back and talk about how we got it to the form that's in our package.
Let me try to frame it in general terms, and then we can go the specific and go piece by piece depending. This has been an ordinance that's been in the works for quite a while, and again, Charles LaPrade put quite a bit of time in it. And we went in, we talked in front of P&Z, and we actually brought it back to council, sitting as the committee of the whole, to get a sense of where you wanted to go with it. At that time, the council had a number of comments, a lot of them related to the sizes of the garages, and a lot of other items along the way, the parking, etc. And a certain number of square footages we had originally proposed, council had felt it was a little high, and the developers came in either in front of Cal or at the P&Z and went through the same series of discussions. So what you really have in front of you, we'll go through it in particular, except for that one paragraph on the density, should be exactly what, and I would say exactly, should be what staff has interpreted from the many meetings with the council as a committee of the whole and with P&Z, and in most cases, I'll find out shortly since Mr. Coker is standing over there, the development community as well. So I believe that this is pretty good synthesization of everything else we've been talking about. Now, having said that, I can start to go through what I feel are the high points. You can catch me if I'm going too fast or skipping things you wanted to go to. I got my little cheat sheet in those, at least we can explain over here.
At least hit the high points and maybe we can...
I think I may skip something, just bring me back a page or two. And that's...
Mayor, excuse me, may I ask you, Mr. Shender, to please indicate where you are?
Yeah, I'll start with that, ma'am. The best thing really is if you look on page 3, and page 3 basically, there's not much to look at. It's a series of definitions, because in the PUD code we need to define the applicant, contiguous, the site planner. I do not think lot, master plan, master development plan, patio, terrace, all these were essentially additions because this thing didn't exist before. And I don't believe at this point, and we'll stop at that juncture to see if there's any questions, that anybody had a real problem with the definitions. And they go through the first up to page 5. Then in page 5 and on, if you're ready, we'll go to items there. Do you have any problem with the definitions?
No, but Rick, could you speak more into the microphone? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm trying, but...
I think it's that microphone.
And Charles had the same
I think it's the job.
That could be. That's a good one. Let me move up a little closer. Can you hear me at this point? Let's hope I stay this close. If you go to page 6, the changes are on the bottom of the page in the vicinity map.
And that is a little housekeeping that kept the size of the drawing and the distance similar to what is required in other locations in the PUD ordinance. We went to 1,000 feet for distance to give us a better idea of really what's around it and require a vicinity map so that we can actually, on the map, see what's around it, as opposed to getting a little drawing with the area around it just being basically white space. The next page in item E on page 7 is just a little more information that the board originally felt would be required or should be, and that really took the place somewhat of what's in F. F got defined a little bit better. So E and F basically just making sure we know who owns the piece of property, who are the people involved in it. So in case we need to get a hold of them, we can. Then on the bottom, we dropped off N, which is kind of a demonstrate the capability of doing it. It's kind of hard to say that or not. If they're a big enough development, they bring in the information, we should be able to tell from the drawings that it is not, rather than having just a couple of lines in there. Granted, these are very simple. We get more later. I'm sure we'll have more things to discuss. On page 8, the first thing again is a scale of the drawings, which refers to the scale that we want versus scales required by the county and other places inside the code. We had a couple that some said 60, some said 100. We've agreed that 60 should be the scale we'll use. So we're making that throughout. So that's basically a housekeeping. The next one is a housekeeping too, which basically defines, I guess, the Department of Development Services rather than Development Services Department. You'll find a lot of that, which is just making sure that the language says the same thing consistently.
Let me interrupt you for that. Sure. These are additions and deletions that were there last time we discussed this.
To the best of my knowledge,
there were specific issues such as covered parking, size of storage areas.
If you want me to jump to those, yes,
balconies, terraces,
sure,
patios. I think those were the issues that the council talked about, because what we have before us, I can't differentiate between what was there the first time we talked about it and what was added and deleted from that time. That's my problem.
Okay, I just had the same from council behind me that says basically go to page 24. We should be able to go to the highlight items that I believe you guys are interested in, which was a function of what you told us as your recommendations as the committee of the whole. Okay, in 24, one of the items which is actually at the bottom of page 24 that we spent quite a bit of time on and listening to council's comments is the attached storage garage. And if you read paragraph 3, about the 5th or 6th word in is basically the hinge of all of the changes. All units shall be provided with either, and that's the major word, attached garage area, storage areas, or attached garages. So what we did is we told them basically, if you're going to do a garage, the garage has to be a specific size. And we went to the sizes listed here, 10 by 20 for a single, 20 by 20 for a double, and 30 by 20 for a triple. The reason we spent time on that, and it came from council as well, was concern from the P&Z board as well, that we were building garages or allowing garages to be built that couldn't be used as a garage. And we went through these numbers, and Mr. Sanchez was here with us today in case you need to ask me further questions. Went into a little discussion in terms of how big the door is, get your car through the door, how much space is needed either side of the jamb of the door to be able to create the room. And the best thing to do is really to visualize the parking spots outside. They're 10 by 20. Pull your car in the middle, open the doors, and see if you're beyond the white line. And at 10 feet, most times you're going to be beyond the white line. If you go to the 12-foot wide garage, and basically you should be able to do that. That's one of the items, and later I'm sure that the developer may mention that they disagree with us, but the staff, we advised P&Z that we felt that these were the sizes we should go with. Now, again, it says either or, because when we originally came, we had 80 square feet, if I remember correctly, of storage. And going back and forth, we agreed with the next paragraph, which essentially is 40 feet.
Oh, yes, and of course I see that 24 and 25, I think, incorporate many of the comments that we had last time.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Do these, and I'll call them the enhancements to the PUD code, do these apply to all PUDs or the PUDs that, by virtue of meeting other requirements, get to exceed more than 6 units per acre?
Let me start to answer that and ask Susan to correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this goes to every PUD.
Okay.
that this is a function of what the PUD, we want the PUD to mean. So, am I correct, Susan?
The purpose of this is to replace the existing PUD regulations, and it would be, if you want to do a PUD in the future, this is what you would do.
And these are more strict than they used to be because both from council and from the P&Z board, we and staff felt that we needed to tighten up a lot of this so that the last number of them that get built have a little more amenity, a little softer around the edges, or whatever you want to call it. And that's the reason why we went through changing this period. The next thing, I believe in 25, is one of the other items that council had mentioned, is setting up the parking basically related, if not directly, pretty closely to the number of bedrooms. So the 1 and 2 bedroom house would give you 2 parking spaces, period. A 3 to 4 bedroom would give you 3 spaces, and a 5 plus would allow you 4. And then there's a little more language that gives you how they can be put together, whether it's 2 in the garage, then you care for your 2. If you don't have the garage and you need 2 spaces, then it'll be 2 parking spaces. So again, we're going to the parking spaces based on the size of the unit as far as bedrooms, which is closer to what you're going to have maybe from the standpoint of the number of people who may be in the house and therefore be driving. Now, not a straight one-to-one, because obviously in most cases start off with, it may well be a younger person not going to be driving. But this was our response to try to at least tie it back to bedrooms rather than just straight numbers. And then what we also did, because we went back and forth from council's comments on the parking structure, we ended up tweaking a little bit more. If you go down to the long paragraph in the middle, it says, all parking from multifamily structures greater than 3 stories shall be provided for by parallel parking on interior roadways and commonly owned and maintained covered off-street parking structures to promote and encourage maximum open space through the proposed development. Such parking structures shall be constructed in the same manner and utilize similar architectural design elements and materials as in a dwelling unit is intended to serve as to comply with the crime prevention through environmental design guidelines. What this basically does is when we decide, depending on the PUD, that it's going to have more units and it may be going vertical, and you can't put them all in a parking garage because you have multiple levels. Once they get above their 3 stories, they have to come up with some methodology for doing whether the garage becomes a separate animal, part of the building, or some phase. They have to come up with that because they will not be able to put everything on a surface parking, probably. So we give them the option of doing that and tell them what it's got to look like. The next thing, council, I think we talked about this, but we didn't change this. We still felt that the minimum of 0.25 guest parking worked out well for the overall one. That's one we did not agree with you, I must admit. You wanted more. Going back and forth, we felt that based on the number of units within it and a number that this turns out to be, we felt that was sufficient. Now again, tonight, if you decide to say, make it a higher number, you tell us the number, and I have no problem with moving it. I think this does do what we want it to do, but we made it as much as everybody wants it to do. So if the council's feeling is that the number should be 0.33 or some other number, obviously we can look at that. We mark up whatever it's going to be. This comes back for a second reading, and we have a chance to look at it again.
Fair. Rick, I was uncomfortable with that because out of every 8 units, you get 1 guest space. I mean 2. I'm sorry, you get 2. That's two spaces for every 8 units for guests. That just doesn't get it.
But I would tend to agree with you, except that we've beefed up the number of parking spaces required in the first place. So you get a fair amount of space, and I hate to see me squeeze them in, but we're making...
Those are based on occupancy, basically.
Right, based on the bedrooms. Right. But if you have the space for 3 or 4 cars, I'm not going to argue with it. If you want to make it higher, I got no problem with that. No, seriously. Like I said, this is one that we did go back and forth. We didn't do that. P&Z felt that this was a sufficient number. And it's one that if council wants to say, hey, I don't care what P&Z wants, I'm going to make it 0.5, I have no problem with that.
I think we should take a look at that. I know it may sound minor, but when there's no place for the guests to park, it's not minor.
I understand, ma'am.
I'll
just circle it for now.
How does it compare with the non-PUD development? Not only the parking, but also the
non-PUD, so you go back to different criteria in code. Let's say if you're going to end up with a dental office, it's so many per square feet, or if you have a restaurant, it's so many per seats. and the seats are from tables, etc.
But a typical 3-2, would you require 3 parking spaces?
A typical 3-2 would be required 2 parking spaces. 3-2 would be, 3-2 would be 3 parking spaces, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Sorry, yes, sir.
In a non-PUD?
In a non-PUD.
I honestly don't know.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I think, Rick, that's probably tempered by the fact that in a non-PUD situation, you typically have a much larger lot upon which to situate space for your guest parking.
So at the second meeting, could we just look at that?
I will make a notation, sure.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Porter, then Ms. Woolman.
On the, Rick, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
In the PUD process, it's always been it's been a rather vaguely written code so that you would be able to get amenities from the developer, and you may give up something on the side. Now, this is a minimum requirement. Do you have any leverage left in the code to go back and in response to them giving up 0.50 parking spaces, guest parking spaces? Can you get something else? You know what I'm talking about? Because we've always been, the PUD code was specifically written to be flexible, where you could ask for more green space. In response, the developer would give up something, and then they would take something in the return. Is this going to give you, are you going to have any ability to do that with this code in this particular circumstance?
Let me give you the answer, and again, ask Susan and James to pipe in if I give you the wrong answer as I understand it. Basically, when you go to the back end of this ordinance, it has a lot of flexibility built in to allow the developer to bring in different things than we've seen before, and allows us to look at it as staff and to bring it to you as council, see if you agree with their interpretation of doing something differently. As far as the minimum number of spaces, this is going to be it. Now, if they come in and they offer more, we'll be very happy to look at it. And sometimes, depending on what they bring in, we kind of push at P&Z. But this will be the minimum. And most of the negotiation, as far as leverage, et cetera, is written in the last few paragraphs of this ordinance, where it allows a lot more flexibility in terms of the size of the lots and everything else, so they can bring in a lot of different variations, but we don't have to take those variations. We only take the variations if we feel that they are indeed in the city's best interest. I don't know if that answers your question, sir. If not, try again, and I'll try one more time.
Well, I'm trying to make the question so that the thing that with the PUDs in the past, I mean, the more you define the code, the more it becomes a conventional code, as opposed to the original, very broad PUD code that we had. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, okay? But the original PUD code was very flexible, and now we're getting more into very specifics in how things take place. Therefore, the minimum number, can you get a higher number by giving or taking something in response? Because that's what's been happening in the past. Because it was all, you asked for more green space, well, they would give it up someplace else. It ended up maybe coming out of the lots, the size of the lots. Am I not making sense? Because I'm trying.
If I may, Ms. Vice Mayor, page 17 of the ordinance talks about the concept that you're bringing up, Councilman Porter. It sets forth in great detail that the intent of the PUD is to come up with a win-win situation where the developer does a little bit more and the city gets a little bit more, and there's a flexible situation where you can come out with the best outcome. There is a tension between that goal and the concern that staff and the P&Z board and others had about making sure that certain things were minimums to assure that the PUD that resulted was a quality development.
Okay, are we achieving that with these minimums that are set in place? Agreeing that a minimum is 0.25. I don't know if that's enough. It may not be enough. Can you get a higher number from them by establishing a minimum? You're going to get at least that. Maybe we didn't even have that in the code before. Maybe we didn't even think about it before. But are we establishing a plan that gives us the flexibility to extract from the developers the things that we want, but yet still manages to keep minimums in place?
I think the answer is yes, sir. Simply because, again, while these are minimums, a lot of the things we've added these minimums did not exist before, and that's going to get us, from the city's perspective, a better product. As Susan mentioned in those paragraphs, and I thought there were other ones in the back end, there's a lot of flexibility still, so if they come up with something that's totally different, they can come up with something else, we can look at it. Say back to the original example of the .25, if it stays .25, I rather doubt we're going to get more than that in many cases. They may show up a couple times, and it may be a function of just what's left and how it works. If indeed you feel that that is an important enough issue to bump the number, then we bump the number accordingly, and then they have to provide at least that. But considering that there was no requirement before, we've made it stricter in the sense of getting something. Have we made it too strict? I don't really think so.
Thank you.
I hope that answers it in a long, roundabout way, but...
It does. I agree with what you're saying, and I wanted to hear that you still have flexibility as staff, and the council will still have flexibility as council to give and take with developers to get the amenities that are the most important for a particular developer.
Yes, sir. This is designed basically to give both the staff, actually give staff and the P&Z board and the developer and especially council enough flexibility to say yes or no to a lot of things that we may not have seen before.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Wallman?
Well, thank you, Mr. Porter, because that was primarily what I was concerned about, was that, you know, I don't want something written in stone to where we can't have the flexibility, because there are different portions of the town that we're going to have to look at different things. My other question was, and perhaps it's here and I just don't see it, but I remember we had a big discussion about having every parking space being a covered parking space, and including townhomes and condominiums, and all mixed use. Do you remember that conversation?
We've taken that out because the way I understood it from the cow discussion...
I just want to make sure it's not in
Yes, ma'am. It's out. That was the long paragraph I was talking to Mr. Lasner about when we got to that point. We have eliminated, we basically told them the number of spaces required in a ratio relative to bedrooms, so that you can, you know, it's from the council in terms of some way to relate the number of people in it to the number of parking spaces. But when you get into multiple levels, it's kind of hard to put the garages for those spaces underneath.
I agree.
So in that case, when they get above 3 stories, they've got to come up with another methodology for providing those parking spaces.
Now, I had that particular paragraph highlighted here, but at the same time, I just wanted to make sure. I have no problem passing this on first reading, but I do think we need to tweak this a little more, and we need to sit down and maybe not have a workshop at a committee of the whole meeting, but have a meeting where we can sit around a conference table and actually... It's hard, you know, I can't even see Mr. Losner down there. I mean, you know, I mean, it's hard to have a workshop in this setting.
I understand that, ma'am. And again, if that's your desire, the council is there, I got no problem with that at all. We believe that what we have here is a pretty good compiling of everything you've asked for, with maybe the exception of the .25. But I think everything else that you've mentioned we should look at is here. Now, granted, this is our interpretation of what you told us. So I would have no problem getting together and making sure that we all understand the same thing.
My point is that, you know, I get this on the weekend.
I understand
and, you know, members of the audience, you have no idea how much
paper we send out. Yes, ma'am.
And reading, as Susan's shaking her head, and yes, we understand that if it's underlined, but yet we're not, and Mr. Larson, I think, made the point that, you know, when you sit down and look at it, you're not sure what was in the last draft we had, or what's, you know, what the actual changes are, and I am adamant that, you know, you pass something, and even though you say we have flexibility, I want to make sure that what we pass is going to be the right thing.
Well, let me...
I realize this is first readings.
I was going to pose a legal question, but I guess I'll ask Susan, since Richard's not at his spot. I would think, and again, if it's the council's wish, that you could comment on this, help me out with Susan, and then set up a COW meeting, and then come back after that, if that is the case, and go through it. Now, I don't know where first and second reading falls in that from a legal issue, so having framed that very loosely, I'll see if Susan can carry the ball.
My intention is to hopefully we can get first reading and have another COW to deal with this specifically, and then bring it back for...
That's what I was trying to see. If legally we can do that, that sounds fine to me.
Yes, we could do that.
Good.
Okay. Because again, I would like to have you comfortable that what we're saying is what you understand it to be. but I think you've done a good job in incorporating most of the comments that we talked about at the last committee of the whole. But I think before we finalize these things, we need to take a look at it. Because I'd like to see a comparison with the non-PUD uses in Homestead with this. So, any other comments from council? This is a public hearing. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I was going to also recommend, that we go ahead and have a vote on first reading. Go ahead. I think you guys have done a very, very good job on adapting council's wishes and requests into changing some of these making some of these very needed changes. I do think there's just a little, maybe just some very minor changes that we need to work on in the CAL, but I think we need to go ahead and go with first reading as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Any comments from the audience? This is the first reading. Any comments from the audience? I think we have a consensus that we'll have a committee of the whole and look at the details at a later date. Mr. Coker?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, Dick Coker, and we've been working with the staff and with the Planning and Zoning Board for months on this. Rick is right. This has gone through many, many hearings and many discussions, and it really is. The draft that you have tonight really is 90% agreeable between the development community generally and the staff and the Planning and Zoning Board. And I don't mean the development community embracing some of the stricter rules, but just agreeing that, okay, we're not going to fall on our sword for some regulations, because other things are pretty fair. But there's a couple issues, even if you're going to a CAL, and I understand that, there's a couple issues I think you ought to address on first reading. One specifically, but at the CAL, we'll talk about the parking if you wish, but I want you to think about, and I'd like the staff to think about, the parking ratio that you have right now. You have in your code, in the PNC, in the PUD draft that you have on a two-bedroom, one-bedroom, you have 2 parking spaces. On a 3-bedroom, you have 3 parking spaces. On a 5-bedroom, you have 4 parking spaces. Most cities have, for a 1-bedroom, 1.5 to 1.75. For 2 bedrooms, 2. For 3 bedrooms, 2.5. I don't think you'll see 10% of the jurisdictions with parking codes that are in excess of that. Yours is the minimum parking requirements that you have in this PUD regulation is in excess of that. So you've got a lot of parking for just normal units. The guest parking of 0.25, 1 space per every 4 unit, is when you put it together with the parking requirement that you're establishing in this PUD code, that's a lot of parking. And what you want to do is strike a balance between providing parking so you don't have parking in the swale and having pavement all over the place. And I think that what you've got is a very strict, in this PUD draft, a very strict parking requirement in excess of almost any jurisdiction that you'll find. Maybe you ought to take a look at those jurisdictions between first and second reading, because if you go beyond this, you're getting into something, I think, that is overkill, that's hurting you more than helping you. But the main thing I want to talk about is section 30-457 on page 15. I think Rick mentioned this as the issue of controversy. This section, and I have no clue how this section has survived over the last 6 or 8 months of discussion. At every meeting with a staff person and at every hearing before the Planning and Zoning Board in a discussion, everyone looked at it and said, yeah, we got to change this, it doesn't make sense, we'll take care of that. This is on page 15. If you look at section 30-457, item 3. It says area zone is planned unit developments, and then it has a whole bunch of language in there. Everyone agrees that this language doesn't make sense. It doesn't address any proper criteria, but it still remains in this draft. At the Planning and Zoning Board hearing, in which the final hearing that transmitted it up here to you, the Planning and Zoning Board asked the staff their recommendations on this section. The staff said that this was language that was residual from one or two of the council people. But that what the staff recommended, they did not believe it was necessary. And what the staff recommended was to eliminate paragraph 3 and to just put in its place a sentence that says, in a PUD, the density will be determined by the comprehensive plan. That was the staff's recommendation. I think you'll see that in the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Board. The Planning and Zoning Board discussed this for 15 minutes, and they approved this draft with a discussion, and they were told by council that that discussion would be forwarded to you, and that discussion was, we want you to take a look at this. The staff is recommending that you put only that it comply with the density be determined by the comp plan. And so the P&Z board felt with that discussion, the council would have a good background in determining what really should go here. We believe that this paragraph makes absolutely no sense, that the staff recommendation of the density should be determined by the comp plan in a PUD, and that's what a PUD is about. That's what you do these things for. And you don't have to approve it. You have complete and total discretion. In the other zoning areas, there's an entitlement. When you put down in your zoning regulation that in RM 16 you're entitled to 16 units to the acre, you're entitled to it. That's what if you meet the setback requirements, the coverage requirements and things like that, you're entitled to that. That's an entitlement. But you're entitled to nothing in a PUD other than a council has to act in fairness. You can't be arbitrary. But you have every discretion in the world to like or dislike, to vote for or vote against a PUD. And so it's perfectly natural, and the staff recognizes this in their recommendation, that paragraph 3 should read, the density is determined, in a PUD, shall be determined by the comprehensive plan. So we ask you to take the staff's recommendation and to put that language in paragraph 3.
Is that also the Planning and Zoning Board recommendation?
Yeah, yes. If you read the minutes, you'll have to come to that conclusion.
What minutes are you referring to?
We're talking about the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Board in which they approved this draft.
Of what date?
What date?
I don't remember.
17th?
May 18th? Okay, so it's in that particular section.
Yes.
But that's an issue, Mr. Cook. I think at the committee of the whole, we'll take a real close look at it.
Wow, okay. I think that paragraph 3 is something it's gotten a life of its own, and I have no explanation of why it's still in there. And I hate to see it go past first reading.
Mr. Mayor, if I could interrupt for a sec. Just for reference, Mr. Coker, may I continue? The green sheet memo we gave you today essentially states that good, better, and different, that the staff recommends approval of the proposed code amendments with the exception of the section he's talking about, 3457.3, and it mentions why it was there originally, and then it mentions that P&Z did vote 4-0 to recommend approval without that section, or basically, the way we've indicated without it. So we're going to let them belabor it. That is indeed the history of it, and that will be a function, I would assume, of the COW meeting, just like it will be a function tonight. The COW meeting will give us a little more flexibility of talking back and forth on it, but the staff has made the recommendation, P&Z has made the recommendation. Amazingly so, Mr. Coker agrees with the recommendation. The chair said we don't always agree, and then again, it's up to you guys when we talk about it at the COW. So I think it's better to let everybody digest that, talk about it at the COW meeting, rather than beat it up tonight. Because I don't think it's fair at this juncture, since we've agreed to go to a COW, that you guys spend as much time on this one issue. But that's, again, your call. Just wanted to give you a little idea of the history, and then if this is an item for the COW meeting, that may be where 2/3 of the meeting is. That's fine.
If that's where it's going,
it's going to
fine. Okay. Then it's clear. Then the staff agrees that P&Z recommended. Staff recommended it. The only other issue that we'll talk about at the COW, from our point of view, from my point of view, is the size of the garages. And what we're going to suggest is that you want a 12 by the staff recommends. Everybody recommends a 12 by 20 one-car garage. It says if you don't have storage, if you have a garage, you don't have to have the storage. What we're going to ask you to consider is that for a one-car garage, to allow a 10 by 20 one-car garage, if in addition to the garage, the developer provides the required storage. In addition. So you'd have a 10 by 20 garage and the required storage. So we're going to ask you to consider that at the county meeting. But thank you for those comments. And
if you could send us a letter, Mr. Coker, with those specifics in it, so we could have some advanced discussion, research on it, would be very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Porter?
When we go to the CAL, can we have some discussion with regards to the CRA, Rick, from you, and how the PUD and the smaller parcels, because I know the intent is to try to create smaller blocks, maybe 5-acre PUDs inside the redevelopment area, and apply some of the issues that we're talking about to the smaller blocks, because it does get a little confusing when you talk about percentages. You're not dealing with 100-acre developments, you're dealing with 5-acre redevelopment inside what we consider to be blighted areas. So I'd like to have some dialogue on that from your perspective, Rick, if I could. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter.
And Mr. Mayor, one more comment, and I probably shouldn't do this right now, but I've asked before, I've asked now for 3.5 years. When we get last-minute things in front of us, it's hard to sit here and make huge decisions and still having to read and read and read material. I beg you, if you have the material departments, please give it to us ahead of time. I mean, I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but you get all these little pieces of papers handed to you at the last minute. They're here when you sit down, and I don't feel like I have the time to really study what they're saying and apply it to my vote. So I'm asking you again, please, even if we have to cut the agenda off early, Sheila, even if we have to stop agenda items coming in on a Wednesday or whatever, in order for us to get the package complete, give us a complete package, let us have the opportunity to study that package and to be here and make reasonable and intelligent decisions. I really don't like it when I get all these pieces of paper put in front of me at the last minute. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll agree with Councilwoman Roman. I think and we probably can talk about this at the Committee of the Whole, that unless it's critical, Mr. Manager, I think we need to cut it off and just put it on the next council agenda, or bring it to the Committee of the Whole, because these last-minute agenda changes have come tonight and I got a revised agenda. Ms. Wallman is right. It's very important that we get in advance so we could intelligently vote on these issues and study them over the weekend. We have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to go through this agenda. So unless it's critical, I would request that you don't amend the agenda once we get it at 5 o'clock on Friday. Unless it's something critical, Mr. Manager, you need approval on it. Other than that, I think we need to stay with the agenda. If you need a little more time, let us know. But once I get the agenda at 5 p.m. on Friday, that should be the official agenda. And it's an emergency, I think, Mr. Manager, you could call, we could bring it from the floor. But I would like to have a consistent agenda. I mean, every council meeting we get an amended agenda. Anything else? Mr. Losner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. For purposes of the Committee of the Whole meeting, I'd really like to have some staff and attorneys ready to talk about what we're going to replace. And I agree with Mr. Coker that that's probably a ridiculous paragraph, but I probably agree with him for a whole different reason for what he thinks. I mean, if you apply the percentages to a 20-acre PUD, what that paragraph effectively does is create 28 unit per acre density. And we've tried to dismiss some of this density sleight of hand through tightening up what open space is counted at in lakes and how the lakes are used. But I think that if we don't replace that paragraph with something else, we are going to effectively gut our bright line test of 6 units per acre. If we revert back to the underlying land use plan, the line that I've tried to hold for my whole time here will be finally erased for the benefit of the development community. And I really wish staff would stop trying to bend over, it's right here in the language of this green sheet. Well, it's not really pleasing the development community. Well, how about those of us who live here and work here every day? Let's start worrying about the long-term quality of life rather than squeezing in more and more units, because we're going to be the ones that... They were all on board at 6 units per acre before the land boom started, and there was plenty of land. And now that it's running out, trying to squeeze more and more and more units, and we have less roads and less schools and more problems. And I would like us to be ready to talk about putting a cap per pod. We've had the peanut butter example and how you spread it and where you pile it up, but there's got to be a limit of how much you're slinging on that piece of bread if we're going to use that example, because even in this section that's going away, the effect would have been a 28 unit per acre for the residential component development. And I know 6 is not going to be the number, but it's got to be something less, I think, than somewhere between 10 and 15. There's got to be some happy medium there. We've got that paragraph needs to come out, but we've got to be ready to plug some other safeguards in. At least that's going to be my perspective.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Okay, any other comments from the audience? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
This is on first reading.
First reading, yes.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Councilman Losner?
Yes, just a minute to count.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Waiting for you? Were you waiting for me?
Yeah, this is the second reading of the ordinance dealing with the budget, isn't it?
Yep. I was waiting for the nod.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the city's fiscal year budget beginning October 1st, 2004 and ending September 30th, 2005 by increasing both the revenue and expenditure budget by $16,528,714, providing for a repealer, severability, and effective date.
Is there a motion for second and final reading?
I'll move it.
Moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Garner. Any comments from council?
I don't even...
Any comment? This is the second and final reading. We're amending the budget. Any comment from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Councilman Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to resolutions, Mr. Mayor, we have a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing transmittal to the Department of Community Affairs of an update to the comprehensive plan, changing the future land use element by modifying the minimum site size requirement for planned unit developments, PUDs, modifying intensity standards in the professional mixed-use classification, and establishing policies that ensure the preservation of significant historical, cultural, and archaeological resources as related to park sites, establishing policies in the transportation element for a Lucy Street, North Canal Drive, Southwest 328th Street interchange off of the Homestead extension of the Florida Turnpike. Modify the future transportation map to designate a portion of North Canal Drive, Lucy Street, Southwest 328th to a major 4-lane street. Modify the conservation element by establishing policies to protect and enhance the natural environment and conserve natural resources. Modify the recreation and open space element by changing current policies on public land acquisition and preservation and establishing policies for the preservation of open space and creation of a greenway recreational trails system and providing for an effective date.
So moved, Mayor.
Moved by Councilwoman Garner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Porter. Any comments from council? If not, I'll open up the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments?
Charles
White, 437 Southeast 22nd Drive, Homestead. I'm a resident of the Keys Gate, which most people have established. I would like a clarification on the one statement here. It says a minimum site size requirement for a planned unit development. Is that going to change the units per acre?
20. Parcel size.
It's changing the size of the parcel. The minimum size of the parcel, yes.
It's changing the overall acreage.
It's allowing you to create a smaller PUD. Right. And the purpose of this is, the actual text says that it'll be specified in the PUD zoning district regulations, which were just discussed a few moments ago. The history on this is that the minimum site size requirement used to be 10 acres. Then last year an amendment was made to make it 30 acres in order to facilitate the PUDs on the larger size sites around the city. Now most of those sites are gone, and to be consistent with the comp plan, there's a comp plan policy in there that talks about, and I can pull it up for you, this is where it actually had come from, relates to the HERO, the redevelopment area, and let me pull it up for you real quickly. But anyway, if you want to look back at that zoning district ordinance, the HERO, the minimum lot size requirement would be 5 acres, and everywhere else it would be 20.
Thank you very much.
Charles, it was simply establishing the ability to have a PUD on a smaller acreage, and the PUD gives us more control, but it wasn't dealing with density. It was only dealing with the size of a PUD.
All right, thank you very much.
It's a good thing.
Any other comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public comments. Final comments from council. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Councilman Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, supporting an application is attached and prepared by the Homestead Historic... Not me.
Not you.
Homestead Preservation Board, nominating the Homestead Historic Downtown District for listing in the National Register of Historic Places and providing for an effective date.
It is on.
I'd like to move this, Mayor.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Wallman, second by Councilman Hodge. Any comments from council? But this is a public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Councilman Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gardner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mayor Warren, if I might just say, if for those of you in the viewing audience and in the audience tonight, there's so much interesting information that's in our packet about the history of Homestead, and I'm sure it's on our website, is it not? Yeah, I would suggest all of you to go in and read this. It's just so interesting, and I think you'll just be amazed at how much history that's right there at our fingertips, and all of you did such a good job. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before I forget, I'd like to request an executive session on the case Jose Rodriguez versus the City of Homestead to be scheduled by the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Business from the city manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just a couple announcements. One is there are 6 days left of the sales tax holiday for hurricane preparedness. The hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th, and now is the best time to prepare. For the first time, the Florida Legislature and the Governor approved a tax-free period directing that no sales tax shall be collected on specified items related to hurricane preparedness. The specific items must be in a certain price range. A complete list of these items and prices are available on the city's website. You can go to www.cityofhomestead.com. Secondly, there's a groundbreaking ceremony for a new parking lot, which will provide needed additional spaces in the southwest neighborhood section. Will take place on tomorrow, Tuesday, June 7th at 9 a.m. The parking lot will be located at the corner of Southwest 4th Street and 2nd Avenue and will contain 15 spaces. The City of Homestead's Community Redevelopment Agency, along with Redland Company, will install the parking lot. If you need more information, you can call 305-224-4484. Thirdly, a representative from Congressman Mario Diaz-Balard's office will be here on Wednesday, June 15th, to assist residents with any questions or concerns having to do with federal issues such as immigration, Social Security, Veterans Affairs, Medicare, and federal grants. If you need assistance with any of these types of matters, please come to City Hall. That's at 790 North Homestead Boulevard, Campbell Drive, US 1, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. We also have the track asked me to announce that this Saturday and Sunday, June 11th and 12th, the Sports Car Club of America returns to Homestead Miami Speedway for a third time this year with a two-day racing event featuring private performance driving. Up to 1,700 Florida Region Sports Car Club of America members from throughout the state of Florida will converge on Homestead Miami Speedway to participate in amateur sports car road races on the Speedway's 2.21-mile, 14-turn infield road course. For more information on this event, you can contact 1-800-770-2055 or log on to www.scca.org. And that's for tonight.
Is that it, Mr. Lynch?
That's it, sir.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Thank you. There's been so many items in these last few weeks. It's been amazing. But first things first, because you have to have your priorities right. I just want to show everybody, you can't see from here, probably the most beautiful girl in the world. My 6th grandchild was born 12 days ago on May the 25th to my oldest daughter, and she is Lindsay Grace De Leon. So if anybody wants to see the most beautiful girl in the world, you can see her right up here. And that's the most important. And Mom is doing very, very well. Thank you. So is Grandma. We've had a lot of groundbreaking ceremonies and ribbon-cutting ceremonies going on in our city, and it shows what an active, productive city we are. And last week I attended at Doral the Salute to Florida Heroes, and it was a wonderful, wonderful event. And it was actually very touching because there was the parents of 2 fallen soldiers and that were present, and it was very, very touching as they spoke on their sons' behalves who have lost their lives. And of course, we just honored, I don't want to say celebrate Memorial Day, but we just honored those that had been lost in Memorial Day, and I always want us to remember that, especially as we've just come out of Military Awareness Month in May. And we also highlighted the military at the Chamber of Commerce event, and this last week at the Military Affairs Committee luncheon as well. So just really want to support our military. Also attended the Lincoln Day dinner and got to meet with Mel Martinez and Attorney General Charlie Crist, and that was very nice. Attended the swearing-in ceremonies of 3 new reserve police officers, and they were very, very proud, and just seemed like very good quality people to pick from. Also attended this last week, the change of command ceremony out at the Homestead Air Force Base. There was a change of command for special operations, and actually General Cambria is just going right to Doral, and he'll be at Special Ops over there in Doral. And we had a new commander come in as well, and he seemed to be very, very nice. It was a pleasure to present Adam Savage with a proclamation from the City of Homestead. He is the young man that won $5,000 for J.D. Red Park on his essay, and he was so proud, and the City of Homestead honored him, and Judy gave him a plaque from the city, and we gave him a proclamation having a special day for him, and his eyes lit up when we said it was Adam Savage Day in Homestead last Wednesday. So he was very, very excited about that. Also, with Mike Taylor, we attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony for a beautiful, beautiful home, and it is what affordable housing should look like. A great big yard, a big garage, big garage. 14, not 10 and not 12, but 14 by 20, just so you know that, Tim. Very, very nice garage, and they actually can open their doors. Sorry about that. So that was really, really exciting. One also read at Pesco Elementary School, and I took a tour of all of Florida Power and Light out at Turkey Point, and actually also went in an airboat through the cooling canals, and it was really, really a neat day, and there was so much information that they fed us. I really thought my brain was going to explode, but it was a great day. It was a very, very well spent day to see the operations out there at Turkey Point, and the security was absolutely, absolutely amazing. We do have, I also want to congratulate Rosemary Fuller on her retirement. I stopped by, she had her retirement party this past weekend, and I couldn't stay long because I had my 30th high school reunion, so I was on my way to that as well, but I wanted to give her congratulations. She's a wonderful woman. She serves on the Education Committee as well as on the Human Relations Board. One note of concern, Rick Chandra and Tom and I, we visited the Waterstone site about 2 weeks ago, and Rick has since visited again, and I really did have some concern, and Rick, maybe you can update us, that from what I saw, which was just, what was it, 12 weeks out, 8 weeks?
12 weeks out.
12 weeks out. When I was there a couple weeks ago, we were only 12 weeks out, and I expected to see workers all over the place like ants, and that they just weren't there. And I'm very concerned as people are withdrawing their children and assuming that they're going to be in this new Waterstone school. I'm very concerned, and I don't want to raise a red flag. I'm not trying to alarm, I'm trying to inform. I don't see the progress that I think we should have seen with only 12 weeks out. And I really want to inform the community that they may want to hold their spots where they are, even though they put their application into the Waterstone School, because I feel very, very badly with people pulling their children out of schools and private schools. Now, Rick, you've spoken with them since then, I know that. So would you like to give me us an update on that?
Yes, ma'am. Since we talked, I've received another schedule. Actually, I got it late Friday afternoon. Unfortunately, Friday was another day with a lot of other meetings, didn't get to it. Today I was planning to go out there, but with the rain in the morning I didn't. I want to go out and take a look and see if, at least in my mind, the scheduler told me as far as percentage done is indeed close to that, and I will keep the council appraised as I see it. But I do agree that what we saw out there before had a long way to go. The developers of both Mr. Avino and Mr. Machado advised me that they must be open, so they will do anything they need to do to get it open. And when I get out there in the next day or so, I'll see what kind of changes have happened since the last time you and I and Tom went out there.
Thank you. I do want the community to be aware that I have some very, very strong concerns about the ability for that school to open on time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Well, it would take as long as the theater, we're in trouble.
They're pouring the pieces on the ground. I don't know when they're up in the air.
I was out there today, and Mr. Crawley said October, right? So we can hold his feet to the fire in that theater. Councilwoman Garner?
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I ever hear about, too. When is that theater opening? I heard they ordered films for October, so...
October.
I have some good news. Our Utilities Department had been working on the streetlights along Farm Life Road. They completed the job planning with FP&L. They will be forwarding an agreement in the next day or two for the city to execute, and they will install the lights the next month and a half. So that issue will be resolved. Thank you to all the staff members who have been helping with that. I'd also like to thank everyone out at the Homestead Air Reserve Base. I was on vacation the last 2 weeks, and I spent about 4 hours, so thank you everyone for putting up with me out there at the base. They gave me a tour of everything. I watched the planes take off. It was incredible. I was trying to get in it, but they wouldn't let me in there. Thanks to Colonel Falcon and his assistant Barbara Vaughn, because she put it together for me. And of course, Tom Davis gave me the full tour, and then he kicked me out. So I'll be back to fly on one of those F-16s, though. And if the rest of you hurry up, we might catch some of this heat game.
Thank you, Councilwoman Garner. Councilman Hodge?
I'm glad she said it, so I didn't have to. Nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Lardner?
Well, I shared with Councilman Hodge a few minutes ago that it's only the last 2 minutes of the game that really matter. And since I think I've already yielded my time to the Vice Mayor tonight, I just want to have one item on the Committee of the Whole agenda, and that would be some discussion on some extension of the application of our color standards. Mr. Stotts and I had some conversation about that last week, and without springing it on somebody else tonight, and given the hour, if we could put that on the agenda and deal with that. Real quickly, I just want, was it our last meeting? We recognized the Donna Lee Dance Studio as the Employer of the Month, and they had just one fantastic program. Again, just such a long history there of serving literally hundreds of young women in this community from the age of 3 to 18, and those dance programs and performances, and so many Miss Homesteads and even a couple of Miss Floridas have come out of that dance program that's right here in the city of Homestead. And I want to commend Donna Lee and all of her instructors and all the parents of those hundreds, probably I think 500 girls that make the effort to allow their daughters to have that experience. And that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Lauzner, where we are in the annexation process? I know you had mentioned at a committee of the whole that we needed to expedite our strategy. So are we moving on that with the other?
I think we are. And the hearing on the pending applications was moved from this month to August. They take July off. Is that correct, Kurt?
That's correct. I didn't hear what you'd said, Mayor, on that.
I know about the 60 acres, but I know we had some others waiting in the wings, and I wanted to know, were we going to expedite that process, or are we going to wait until we get confirmation of the first 60 acres?
I think the next July, I'm trying to remember that. I'll have to get that to you, Mayor, and find out.
Because we were going to, we had other applications that we,
other applications.
In an effort of working some of those issues out. We'll talk about that Tuesday.
Get it to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Porter?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just 2 points of interest real quick. There's 2 things that I believe the county commissioner taking a look at that may have negative impacts on us as a municipality. One issue is being supported for possibly a repeal of the 2 cents of the 3 cent gas tax, which, although we'd all like to pay a smaller amount for gas, it really basically attaches the cost onto the user. The more gas you buy, the more sales tax you pay, and I know that would affect us negatively, Mr. Manager, to our portion of that tax that we receive. So could we monitor that as it goes through the commission process? I know that's correct.
So we're monitoring that, yes.
Okay, the other item that we has come up basically is they're possibly looking at taking similar actions to the impact fee structure when it comes to road improvements. And in the past, there's been 9 different zones that have equally divided, or the impact was in those 9 zones, and they want to go to 3, which basically allows the county to take some of the impact fees and spread it over larger areas, which I'm not sure if it's better or worse, but can we monitor that and maybe at a subsequent meeting? I know this is still up for first reading, but let's follow that as well.
Yeah, we're following that as well.
Because I know in the school systems, when they take impact money from here, they can ship them all the way, we don't know where. So Sunny Isle, which may not want to see that same sort of analysis done with the road impact fees.
Yes, sir.
So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Ms. Woolman?
Yes, Mayor. I just want to remind everyone, starting to make your 4th of July plans. The gates are going to open out at the stadium at 5:30. We have a great concert, an Elvis impersonator, thank you. And I've seen him in person, that's why I can't talk. He's good. And we're going to have a rock wall, we're going to have all kinds of stuff, food, lots of fun. The fireworks are at 9 o'clock and everything is free. So I also wanted to mention that Wednesday night, June 8th, at the Villages of Homestead Clubhouse, I'm having just a update on your community. All the public's welcome. I think it's going to be in the paper tomorrow. We sent out flyers in the villages. Everyone's welcome, and of interest, one of my speakers is going to be a representative from Waterstone Charter School. So if you're interested in that, they'll be there in front of us Wednesday night, and you can ask them directly whether or not they're going to be open or not, and have some direct conversation with them. We're going to have some updates on the roads. Any questions that you might have, feel free to come. It's at 7 o'clock. I'm going to have some coffee and cookies at the Villages of Homestead Audubon Clubhouse. And Mr. Rosner, is he still down there? There he is. Just so you know, my son, he's going to kill me for saying this, he's going to be 32. Is he going to be 32? I don't know, maybe 31, I don't remember, in July, and he took dance lessons from Donna Lee when he was from 8 to like 12. He's going to kill me. Tap and jazz, and he can still do it. And there's his teacher right there, his second grade teacher. I know. And
no wonder he moved away.
I know. And he can still do a mean tap dance to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But it's not just women. I don't know if they have any boys in there. Remember how, he'd have to go to school with his little tap shoes. But anyway, I love Donnelly too. I just wanted to say. And he took dance lessons with his bride. Angie and Philip were in dance class together, and that's how they met, and they ended up getting married all those years later. Now I can never face him again. He's going to kill me. Thank you.
Is that it, Ms. Wallman?
That's it.
Thank you. Boy, you've all been busy the last couple of weeks, and so have I. The appointment of Carolyn Denise Sawyer to the Mayor's Youth Council, motion for approval. So moved. Second. Moved by Councilman Garner, second by Mr. Porter. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On May the 18th, the manager and I and Mr. Porter and Mr. Hodge flew up to Washington to meet with our congressional leaders about $9.5 million to help us with the infrastructure need in the city of Homestead, and we were well received by Mario Lincoln Ballard, Congressman Meek's office. We met with Congressman Ileana Ross-Layton, and they are really working hard to maintain that $9.5 million in the transportation appropriation bill for the city of Homestead. And it's going to do wonders for us in terms of providing the much-needed roads. And I think we calculated that we got an 80 and 90% chance of getting the $9.5 million, if not 13 million. So we'll push it for the $13 million. But it was, the city of Homestead was well received. But more importantly, people know about us in Washington. And Mr. Porter and Mr. Hodge and the manager did a fantastic job in presenting our case. And I think that we should know next month whether we're going to get that at least $9.5 million. It was a needed trip, and I think our Congressman Mario is leading the charge, and he sits on the Transportation Committee, which makes it even significant for Homestead, so we're looking forward to that. And as I talk about transportation, we just received the feasibility study referenced the interchange proposed at Lucy Street in the city of Homestead, and it is on track, I think, Julio. We're required to respond to this, and I don't know whether, have you all received a copy of the feasibility study?
I had a Xerox copy in my file that just
Let
came
me
in
pass
today.
this down because I think we're required to respond to it. But that's also very good news to help us with the transportation needs in the city of Homestead. We had two major projects, possibly, and Mr. Porter, you need to get a copy of that report too for the Infrastructure Committee. I also had an opportunity, along with the Vice Mayor, to be at the base with the change of command ceremony, and also represented the city at the local Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 4727 on last Saturday, and presented a proclamation. The banquet was well attended, and the city homestead was well received. I further had an opportunity to speak at the Tabernacle Assembly of God Church and spoke on a topic they gave me about traveling with God, failure is not an option, and that was very, very interesting, and I was pleased to speak at the church on Sunday. Rosemary Fuller, after 36 years, 35 years with Miami-Dade School, retired, and she have agreed to continue to devote time and effort with our Human Relations Board and the Education Committee. She got a lot of time on her hands now, so we were pleased to be there. And let me also thank Mike Taylor for on Saturday at Miami-Dade Community College. OSHA was there, and I was so impressed with the number of Homestead residents that showed up for the training. And if I knew they were giving away a truck, I probably would have signed up for them the training program, but it was well attended, and I think the truck was donated by Mr. Armstrong, and the community was pleased, and I think the training was just superb at Miami-Dade Community College. I want to thank everyone that played a role, and Mike and your whole team that brought OSHA to Homestead. And after hearing about the number of incidents and in some cases death in our community because of just people not knowing the safety techniques in the field of construction in particular, so that was very good that we had it here in the city of Homestead. Let me too just thank the staff for also being a part of that OSHA training. I'm told that we played a very major role in not only time, but I think we made a donation toward setting those training sessions up. So thanks to Marlene and Mr. Manager and the whole staff for doing that. And that's all I have. Mr. Porter? I
got one comment. Let me just say that you give Councilman Hodge and I rewards for going to D.C., but your presence certainly opened up a lot of those doors that otherwise would have been closed to the manager and Mr. Hodge and myself. So I was impressed with your reputation in Washington, and thank yourself, and we thank you for kicking those doors open, and your leadership is going to help bring that 9.5 back to the city. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? Any comments? Just come up and give us your name and address for the record.
Evelyn Guilfoyle, 630 Southeast 28th Lane, Homestead. I just would like to make a request from the audience, since we're getting an increase in the budget of $16 million. Could we do something with the sound system in here?
I second that.
We'll certainly take a look at it. So are you having problems with the staff or with us too? And
no, it's just annoying because of that acoustic.
Oh, okay.
The microphones. It's to everybody out here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There's a ringing on that.
I think we need a new building, but
working on it.
Fault Mr. Lawson for that. We don't have the new building yet. Any other comments? But thank you all very much for coming, and hope that the Heat win tonight.
Down by 9 right now. Yeah, by 9. Yeah.
Down by 9.